This episode of Pucks Across Borders is brought to you by First Round Collectibles. They have it all: boxing, football, hockey, baseball, you name it, you can find it at First Round Collectibles. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah, let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats. I sting them in.
Welcome to Pucks Across Borders, the only show where the countdown from 10 goes twice. We are back to talk some more NHL playoff hockey. Best time of the year. Nothing better. No Mark today, unfortunately, but we still have the one, the only Gridiron Heroics Zone, John Galletly. John, how are we doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Gonna miss Mark on today's show, but we'll hold down the fort for you as best we can. And tomorrow, hopefully, we'll be back together. And hopefully, we'll be talking about maybe an extended series, or we'll be talking about the first team to go to the conference finals.
Yeah, uh, probably the expectation was that today's game was not going to be the first one to potentially send a team home. But with the way yesterday unfolded and the way that um, life has gotten in the way in the Western Conference for one of the teams, that's where we are. But before we get to Avalanche Stars tonight, the only game on the slate, Rangers and Hurricanes got an extra day off. So thank the NHL for winning a Game 7 on Saturday. We're going to get to the other Eastern Conference team, the plural, from last night. Because the Bruins, they survived. Big game for them. Jumped out early, shot out of a cannon, as Mark likes to say. Geeky scored less than 5 minutes into the game. Panthers tied up in the second. McAvoy scored a few minutes later to give them a 2-1 lead. They held on to that 2-1 lead to extend the series. They are now down 3-2, headed back to TD Garden. 28 shots on goal for them, 29 for the Panthers. Both teams took an 0 for on the power play. Bruins 21 block shots, 49 hits. Both beat the Panthers by double digits. John, what did you take away from last night's series, or I guess not just series, but season extending game in Florida?
Boston really surprised me. I thought they were dead in the water. I think most of us did going into this game. They showed some life in Game 5 that I hadn't seen from them since, quite frankly, Game 1. I don't know. It's hard to explain what happened to the Bruins yesterday, but I swear the one notable thing I had is they actually put some pressure on Bobrovsky. They had the most shots on goal since, like I said, probably Game 1. And it's the first time, I think, in a while they had over 20 shots. I believe they ended up with like 27 or 28 shots on goal. I want to 29. So no, wait, no.
Yeah,
I'm looking at
it
Swayman.
was
My bad.
28.
Yeah, 28. So yeah, 28 shots on goal, which is unlike what we've been seeing from the past 3 games from the Bruins. So I think that's going to be a key factor going into Game 6 to see if they can keep up that pressure. I found 2 things interesting on Florida's side of things. First off, I think Reinhardt tried to carry the team on his back last night. He had a goal, 8 total shots on goal, and 1 or 2 other really good opportunities that just didn't end up in the net. I felt like he did everything he could to put the Panthers on his back and win the game. It didn't seem like the rest of the team really showed up. I'm not putting the loss on Bobrovsky, by the way. I think Boston just stepped up. I think he kept it close for them. I just don't think the rest of the skaters showed up quite as well. It seemed like Boston was actually getting, for the most part, better opportunities than Florida last night, or at least keeping up with them compared to the last few games. Second thing is, I noticed in the second period when Boston went up 2-1 that we actually had the reverse scenario of what happened in game 4 between Boston and Florida with the controversial no call for goaltender interference. In game 4, it controversially went Florida's way with a key goal that ended up winning the game. And you could argue the same thing happened with Boston last night because it was only a 2-1 game, and I believe it happened on the second goal. The refs took a while to look at the call and see if there was goaltender interference. Now, I personally felt like this one was tougher to call than the Florida one in game 4. The Florida one I thought was more conclusive. This one I think had a stronger argument to go the other way. But I think if Mark were here, he would probably say this, that the fact that they called it no interference on the ice probably led to them keeping the call. Because the way I looked at it is like, boom, I don't remember the player that got in the way of Bobrovsky here, but it seemed like both of their sticks just ended up tangled up, and there was a tiny bit of physical contact, but it was kind of outside the crease, and Bobrovsky was going on the very edge of the crease. So I think it's just one of those situations because it didn't happen definitively in the crease. It was hard to overturn the call made on the ice. I'm not going to, I think I'm very 50-50 on what happened there. I don't have a problem with it being a no call, mainly because I think the Bruins fans would be up in arms if they called that goaltender interference and not the game 4 one. So I think the refs got caught in a position where you have to keep it consistent. So the call that was made on the ice, and I like the fact they let them play a little bit, get a little physical, earn the goals a little bit, and tell your defenseman to step up on both sides. So I think that's one of the most notable plays that happened in the game, and I'm impressed the Bruins came back the way they did. I think we both thought they would be done in this game.
For sure. I'm glad you brought up the goalie interference that wasn't, or the catch that wasn't, if you will. Danton Heinen kinda in Bobrovsky's kitchen on that goal. I don't think he was interference. I don't think it was enough where you should call that. Kind of in line with you. Boston would have revolted if that not only took a goal from them, but ended up costing them the series, especially with the way game 4 happened with Sam Reinhart, who has had his fingerprints all over this series for better or worse. Played a great game. Like you said, did his best to drag a Florida team that got outplayed for probably the first time in this series. Boston absolutely showed up with their backs against the wall. It was their most shots on goal in the game, in the series since game 1. And it started early, started in that first period. Just put all the pressure on Bobrovsky right away. Swayman had a fantastic game, which they expect every time he's out there. So kudos to him. And he came up with a huge stop at the end to preserve it. So
yeah,
that's not even really talked about. But
that's a good point.
the Panthers
Florida had a good chance at like the last 15 seconds. They had a chance. They were right there.
Yeah. So again, Bruins offense still couldn't muster more than 2 goals, but they put enough pressure on the Panthers where they didn't need more than that. And that's got to be the blueprint going forward, right? You can't live in your defensive zone if you're the Bruins. That's kind of what we saw yesterday. And I think if they're going to survive game 6 in a few days, I believe that would be Friday night, they're going to need to have the shots be even like they were in this one. They're going to need the zone time to be even like they were in this one. Just play just a better game in the neutral zone and the offensive zone if they want to keep their season alive. So good win for them yesterday. Now they're back home. That's the best you can ask for. Get it to game 7, anything can happen. Game 7 seems much more likely for both of Canada's teams. I said Canada, both of Canada's teams. Uh, the Canucks fought their hardest to send that game to overtime yesterday, but the Oilers squeaked one out 3-2. Uh, really entertaining game. The Oilers scored the first two, take a 2-0 lead into the third. Garland scores like 7 minutes into the third. Dakota Joshua deflects one in with less than 2 minutes left. A minute later, Bouchard drives home the game winner for the Oilers. Oilers had 30 shots to Vancouver's 21. That's been a disparity we've seen all series, with Edmonton winning that shot total. Vancouver 0 for 3 on the power play. The power play has been better for most of this series. What did you take away from yesterday's game? And Picard, first start of the postseason for the Oilers. So that's kind of big too. What did you take away from that one?
I'm glad we caught the Picard thing early in the show yesterday.
Yeah.
Mark basically helped make it a strong suspicion that he was going to get the nod. Two or three main takeaways I have from this game very quickly. The first is that I got to give a shout out to Draisaitl. He's been really good in this series, arguably the best player for the Oilers in the entire series for sure. Like, he's had 3 goals in this series through the 4 games. He's had 7 assists, and he's not strong in the plus minus category, but like I said, 3 goals and 7 assists. He's in this series alone, he's at the very least putting up production for the Oilers and keeping them in games. And the Oilers, in their 2 wins, they've needed every single goal. You mentioned Bouchard as a hero last night for the Oilers, nearly blowing the lead, but getting a goal in the last minute. Definitely a big moment there for the Oilers. I think we have to talk about Picard a little bit. He got the nod. I was calling for him to start the last couple of episodes. I think mainly after Game 3, that was my moment where I said Skinner needs to get out, because I think just giving up 4 goals on 15 shots is inexcusable for a professional goaltender. They needed a change clearly, and I think they got just enough to hang on last night. If you're the Canucks, I would not panic about this at all. I think they showed enough fight that, like you said, this is probably going to be a long series. And plus, Demko he'll come back by Game 6 or Game 7. Who knows? So I think Vancouver had less pressure to win in Edmonton. I think the fact they got 1 in there is a good sign. I still think they're playing better. The one thing I would be concerned about now for the Canucks is that Pickard is like playing better than Skinner. I think he'll get the start in Game 5. The one thing Vancouver needs to work on now that they're facing someone playing a little better behind the net, they need to get more shots on goal. Like, I think they were getting away with it with Skinner because he was playing awful, but they only had 21 shots on goal last night. And credit Vancouver for coming back and making that a game. Don't get me wrong. I think they're still going to put a lot of pressure on Edmonton going forward, but I do think the Oilers changed, and Vancouver's going to have to start putting more pressure on the Nets. They need to get more than like 20 shots on goal per game, I think, in my opinion, now in these later games, if they want to win this series. So those are the 2 or 3 main notes I would have from last night's game. I still think Vancouver's very much in this series. I wouldn't sweat it too much if you're a Canucks fan, but big win for the Oilers, and Draisaitl's definitely playing his heart out for the team. And I think last night showed they made the right decision changing goaltenders.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree that switching to Pickard wasn't the right move. All the headlines after Game 3 were calling Skinner a catastrophe, a disaster, a crisis, whatever synonym, adjective you want to use. Uh, Pickard comes in. Vancouver has their lowest goal scoring game of the series, two. And both of those came in desperation time, essentially. They put their pedal, they put the pedal to the metal, if you will, in the third period. Got a snapshot, got a deflection, tied it up, trying desperately to do everything they could to score at that point. So you look at what he did, he stopped 19 of 21 shots he faced. Can you say Skinner would have done the same thing? Probably not. I'd assume most people would not give him the benefit of the doubt anymore. Um, I don't know if Pickard's good enough moving forward to drag this Edmonton team to the conference finals or to the Stanley Cup finals or even to lifting the cup all summer long. But he gives them a lot better chance than Skinner did, and he gives them a much better chance of getting this game or getting this series to Game 7. I mean, or even winning it in 6 if they win the next two. Honestly, that's still in play. For Vancouver, though, they're fine. Every time they need a play, every time they need a score, every time they need a save, it seems like they get it. Yesterday, they just dug a hole too deep. They clawed back too late. But they're just playing. I think they're just playing very good team hockey right now, and it's paying off for them. So, Canucks, don't hit the panic button. Just don't dig yourself a 2-0 hole, and you'll be fine. Or if you do dig yourself a 2-0 hole, maybe score your first goal before the third period. But if you're Edmonton, you found another button to push. It got you another win. That's what the series has been about for them. You know, they lose, they adjust, they even it up. They lose, they adjust, they even it up. It'll be interesting to see if they can get the series lead instead of having to play from behind. Talking about in the games of this series. So, because if Vancouver goes up 3-2, you have to wonder what button would Edmonton have left to push. I think, you know, we said it with the top line pairing of McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. They're running out of options. Pickard, you think Pickard might have been the last option if you're looking at series or season saving moves for this Oilers team. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out in Game 5. If they can carry that momentum into the rest of this postseason, or if they can't get past their glaring holes roster-wise. But moving... Oh, is there anything you wanted to
add? Just that I feel like they're definitely relying on Draisaitl and McDavid to an extent to carry them in this series. Because, I mean, McDavid only had one assist yesterday, but I guess that's something, and several shots on goal, so it was enough. But like, if those two don't produce, they're not winning this series. It just seems as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is the team in every sense of the word. Those two right there. To an extent, I guess you can add Hyman because of the season he had, but you don't have that type of season if you don't have the elite creators in Draisaitl and McDavid right there. So, yeah, they absolutely need them. And they're doing their part to an extent. So it's not like they're dragging the team back, but there's better hockey in them. Stay tuned for that. Maybe a hat trick coming up. But you got to move on to today's game. The Colorado Avalanche facing a 3-1 deficit, facing elimination, and they're back in Dallas. We know the big story with them. It's obviously Nichushkin, who had been playing well this post, I believe, no longer with the team. Highest producer in that regard. They've scored one goal at home in Game 3. They scored one goal at home in Game 4. Plus 124 dogs now against the Stars. John, I will let you go first. What do you see in this game? Who are you rolling with?
This series is very hard to judge now, given the news that transpired shortly before Game 4. I said this recapping the end of that game the other day that I felt like Colorado was checked out. I think my main question following that is, are they checked out for the entire series, or were they just checked out for that game because they were in shock about what happened and processing everything and just not mentally there on the ice? I think it's pretty clear that's what happened in Game 4. I think the other question marks are, has Colorado been like that for multiple games in this series, and will they continue to be like that tonight? I don't want to take, like Mark said, recapping Game 4, I don't want to take away from what Dallas is playing very, very well in this series, better than I expected them to, for sure. And at the end of the day, they still got to play hockey, and they can only do their job, and they can only play the opponent they have in front of them. So I don't want to take anything away from Dallas. Defensively, they're playing great. Ottinger has clearly been the better goaltender, in my opinion, than Georgia. And I think that will continue. I just don't trust the goaltending from Colorado right now. What I will say is I think Colorado will score more than one goal, just because this is an elimination game. It might wake them up a little bit. We've at least seen that from Carolina and Boston so far. So I don't want to say they'll get nearly shut down again for a third straight game. That seems hard to believe. So maybe I'm dying on this hill, but I don't know if I feel safe picking the Colorado win given the things they are dealing with in their locker room. But I think they'll score more than one goal. So I think the safest play I'll go with is an over here. I'm going to take the over 6.5. I think Colorado's going to show a little fight. But I think at the end of the day, Dallas defensively has been impressing me. I think they have less distractions and things they're dealing with. I hate to keep bringing that up, but I think something we have to look at when trying to predict this series now, given how invested mentally is Colorado in this series. Can they get themselves back in it? I think they'll do better than Game 4, but I feel like I'm leaning towards Dallas wraps it up tonight. I just don't feel as confident in a puck line bet despite them winning by 3 and 4 goals the last two games. I think I would just stick with an over 6.5 play.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm kind of with you where I know Colorado only scored one goal the past two games, but I think this offense is going to fight and claw its way to the end. I don't think they're going to bad. This was the highest scoring team in the league all season. They were having a phenomenal postseason up until Game 3. We talk about scoring wise, 3+ goals in every single game. Game 2 was the first time they didn't score at least 4. In Game 4 was the first time, or Game 1 was the first time they didn't score at least 5. So we know the production's in there. We know they're capable of lighting the lamp. It's just a matter of, is their heart in it at this point, which is, sucks to think about, but that's the truth of the matter. And they're not stopping Dallas whatsoever. You can pencil in Dallas for 3 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, whatever it is in this game. So the past 2 were under, specifically because the Avs couldn't score. I don't think that's the case this time around. I'm with you on the over 100%. As for a side, like everything in me is screaming Stars for obvious reasons, but I just feel like the Avs have another game in them. I feel like the Avs have another game or two in them, honestly. I feel like they're going to push this thing as far as they can. So I'm going to take them plus 124. I think they're going to pull off the upset here. And, staring down potentially your last game of the season. Cale Makar over 1.5 points is plus 185. Mark talked about how uncharacteristic he was in Game 4. For whatever reason, that's not for me to know or decide. But he is a generational defenseman, especially when it comes to putting up points. For the most part, or not even for the most part. He has 12 points in this postseason in 9 games. He has 9 points against Dallas in 8 games, and that's without scoring in the past 3. He had a 3-point game in game 1. They're only one of the series. He had 3 multi-point games against Winnipeg in the first round. He had a point in every game in that series, but that was the best defense and goaltending team in the league. I think not Nate McKinnon. I think Cale Makar has a phenomenal game, and that's why the Avs pull it out. So that's where I'm leaning with this one, which, might be kind of a giveaway, but we'll see. It is best bets time. As always, brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Use promo code SportsAddict for an additional 10% off whenever you shop there. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. John, only one game. It's going to be a 2-leg parlay for us. But what do you have in this one?
Got a lot to choose from today. Probably going to be our toughest parlay day but maybe since it's 2 legs, we got a real chance here for a nice, simple, same game parlay. I'm just going to go with what I said before. Keep it simple. Over 6.5. I think we both feel like Colorado's not going to go down without a fight. I just don't know if we agree if Colorado's going to end up taking the W. I'm a little more hesitant to say that, but what I think we're both agreeing with is that they're going to score more than 1 goal tonight. And I think that combined with the lack of reliability behind the net for Colorado, I like the over 6.5 play here tonight.
Yeah, I really like that one too. And that was going to be mine if you didn't take it, but I knew you were going to take it, which is why I had locked and loaded Cale Makar over 1.5 assists at plus 185. Or not 1 assist, Jesus, man. Over 1.5 points at plus 185. Yeah, 3-point game in game 1 in Dallas. That was their only win. Even after 3 straight duds, even after game 4 where he just looked like he didn't want to be on the ice, still 12 points in 9 games this postseason. Tremendous player. They need him if they want to keep their season alive. I think he delivers. I think he bounces back in a big way. So I'm trusting one of the best, if not the best, defenseman in the league to have another big game. Cale Makar over 1.5 points. Parlayed with your over 6.5, which is plus 105. It's a plus 266 parlay. Nothing crazy, but it's only 2 legs. So
I really like that prop play on your end. So maybe we'll hit tonight.
Hey, well, if he gets 2 points, that's a third of the way to the total. So
there we go.
It's a good start right there. That's only for one team. The Stars get their 3 or 4. You're cruising. We're cruising. It's going to be easy dub tonight.
Exactly. We're working smarter, not harder here.
Oh, always. Always, John. Thank you. As always, best of luck covering this schedule and the Giants for the rest of the day. To everyone watching, we appreciate the support. Tune in tomorrow. We will be back to discuss this game, to discuss tomorrow's games. I think there's 2 tomorrow. I know there's at least 1. Playoff hockey. It's the best in the world. Have a good Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. And we will see you all tomorrow.